welcome back. It's Bob from bobsplumbingvideos.com, and we did a brief segment on what happens when you go in to shave one morning and you lift up the rod on your sink and you want to get a full bowl of water and all of a sudden the popper doesn't go down. And I took you under the sink there. I show you how to reconnect the linkage of the pop-up assembly. But I'd like to take you on the bench today and give you a breakdown of how a pop-up assembly works, how it gets put together, and how one would install it on a sink. So let's get down to the bench and find out how this thing works. Okay, we're back on the bench here, and what you're looking at is a pop-up assembly that I use. This is an American-made pop-up assembly. They come in varying shapes and sizes, but pretty much, they all work the same. There's no mystery to them. So real briefly, let me get this out of here a minute. This is the flange that actually goes through the sink. This is what you actually see from inside your sink. If you were to actually get a bird's eye view of it, this is what you're seeing when you lift the rod, pull the rod up and down. You're actually going to send the stopper up and down. This is how that works. This is the part you actually don't see. This part goes through the sink, up through the sink, and the other end is down on the bottom, which you really don't pay attention to ever. But real briefly, how you install one of these is pretty simple. I always like to use my plumber's putty. I put a nice bead of plumber's putty around my flange, and this piece gets set inside the sink, down inside the sink. This is what you're going to see. Up through the bottom, the T gets sent, and then actually, while you're holding the flange in place with your fingers, in this particular case, this one gets threaded. And now you're going to be left with a little extra space here because they make these wider than the sinks by design. I always like to put putty on my gasket. People tell me I'm crazy. I say, mind your business. This is what works for me. Once you have this in there, you're going to have to hold this down. Just keep it down, keep it from popping back up again. Then with your open end wrench, you're going to turn this nut. And as you turn this nut, you're going to start to bring the gasket up to the bottom of the sink. As it hits the bottom of the sink, you're going to see the putty start to squeeze out, which is great. And you would snug that up until you're comfortable with it. If it's a cast iron sink, you can whack it up pretty tightly. If it's a China sink, be careful. China cracks, guys. And ultimately, what you want to do is, I'll turn this around. You want to have this T part facing the back of the sink. You don't want to see this in the front of the sink because it's not going to work that way. So this is going to be facing front way. After you get this all in, you're going to take a little fine blade screwdriver or a toothpick, and you can wipe off the excess putty. Here at the bottom of the sink, this is going to have all putty that squeezes out. You can take that off with a fine blade screwdriver. Now it's a matter of getting your stopper in there. And what I always like to do is, I always like to put my stopper in all the way down, and you just have to line up. If you'll notice, the stopper has a hole here for the rod to go through. This rod has to fit in here, so you're going to have to line this up inside the pop-up so you can catch the rod as such. And you can see now we have to secure this rod with a series of gaskets. In this particular case here, here's a concave gasket that goes inside the T. And there's another one here that goes on the rod. It's concave too, you can see, so the ball sits in there, followed by the nut. And then this will get ultimately threaded through your stopper. Now, it'll get tightened up, and as you can see, I'll give you a little. Now it's a matter of sending the rods through the top of the sink. So, again, this is going to be facing, behind you, but for demonstration purposes, we're going to put our top rod through the sink, which is going to bring us close, but not quite close enough, so we need the additional piece of linkage here. and this gets tight. This has adjustment holes in it, as you can see, because you can adjust this up or down. Depends on the depth of the sink. It depends on the cabinet you're in. There's some varying practice as to where you would put this, but basically you would connect this with this little spring-loaded retaining clip, which goes on here, and then we're going to slip our rod through. And the other end, it's just a matter of, you have to, it's a spring-loaded type of clip. You have to squeeze it. Grab the other end and squeeze while the rod goes through. And what that does is that keeps this from, that'll keep this from coming off. There'll be no lateral movement on it. And then it's just a matter of getting your rod. Again, I always like to have this all the way down, so if this is all the way down, my popper's all the way up, my top rod comes down, and I leave my top rod about, I leave this about a ½ inch, let me push this down a little more, I leave this about a ½ inch off the top of the faucet. Some guys put it right up against the faucet, but I like to leave a little finger room so you can put your fingers under there. And at that stage, what happens, folks, is you pull it up, and you can see the stopper go down. You push it down, the stopper goes up. And such. No mystery. Pretty simple, actually. And then once that's all in and you're happy with the way that's working, then you can proceed to tie in the rest of the waste. They give you this little extension tailpiece, which sometimes fits. Sometimes you may have to put a longer piece on it. But that's a subject for another video. We'll go over how you continue connecting the pop-up into the waste system. And that's pretty much it. One other thing I'll just mention is a lot of times hair gets in here and gets caught up on the stopper, and you'll notice the water in the sink will be slow. So in that case, you can just reach under the sink and just loosen this nut. And if you just slightly, without having to take anything apart here, you can just, if you just pull back on this slightly, just to get the rod out of the stopper, and then you can pull the stopper up. And you can clean off all your hair and soap scum, etc. And then you can put this right back in there. Again, lining up the rod. You have to make sure you catch it, otherwise it's not going to go up and down, and you'll drive yourself crazy. And there you have it. The anatomy of a pop-up waste assembly. Not too difficult, folks. Guys, I want to thank you for stopping by. I really appreciate you coming by and seeing what I have to offer. As usual, if you have questions, info@bobsplumbingvideos.com. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. I want you guys to take care and stay well.